struggle, internal struggle for me, learning this lesson. But a lot of letting go, a lot of like, thinking like, oh, what could have been, or what should I, all these questions, right? Uh, Parenting adult children.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
And whether it is even parenting, right? I mean, do they need to be parented when they become grown-ups? That's the other question. What's your
Yeah.
take on it?
Oh, I think that's a doozy. It certainly opens up a can of worms. Yeah. And I think too, because we've been in control, or not control, but, this has sort of been our domain, for such a long time. We're
Yeah.
conditioned to do that. And
Yeah.
there's no book on parenting, as we know, and there's no book on, the next stage, as we know. It's just touch and go along the way. And, we've got a few hits and we've got a few misses, but it's really hard to gauge what, when to step in and what to do, because, we bring them up to be, really independent and do it, and that's great. But then there's a time when you think, do I need to step in as well? Because, or do I let them go to find out for themselves?
Yeah.
Like, it's really such a grey area. So,
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what other people's experiences are other than my own.
Yeah.
It'll make me feel more normal too.
Yeah. I had a really big lesson about this at a much earlier stage than I actually hoped for. I mean, in my mind, I've always thought that, okay, my daughter she's 19 now. And I
Yeah,
thought, okay, when she's, I'm still her parent. And when she's 21, I'm going to treat her as a friend, more like a peer, because she's a
yeah,
grown up. And I'm not going to parent her. I'm not going to be the hovering mother. By nature, I'm not a hovering mom anyway, but I am very, since she was very young, I've been very careful, in terms of her health and wellness. So I've never given her antibiotics, like even when she was very ill, when she was a child, go to the doctor, I would tell the doctor no antibiotics for her. So, in general, her health is, quite good. I've kept her quite natural, right, in terms of wellness and all that. And she was under pressure to fit in. And so she wanted to travel as well with her father. And I told her, why don't you just wait 6 months, and things will be better. It'll be easier. And also, we don't know what the side effects of the vaccines are like, when it first came out. We couldn't come to a conclusion, like we didn't really have a proper discussion, my ex and I. And then he took me to court. So it was a battle in court about getting my daughter vaccinated. And so this hard lesson came where I started to think, I spent my daughter's entire life, and she was 17 at that point in time, to give her good health, to give her health and wellness that's sustainable. And now she's going to do this, which kind of, I feel like everything that I've done will be wiped out by this, this jab. And so it was a really tough lesson for me, of letting go. I mean, we went to court, we fought it out. Um, the interesting thing was the end result was that he took her to vaccinate before the judge ruled. So it was frustrating. Like, then why do you take me to court if you're gonna do it behind my back? So it was, it was really, really tough. So I had to, after that, mitigate it. So my whole thing with this, how do you parent your adult child, right, comes into play, where you really have to think about everything that you have done. You've done your best to, give them the best, right? Like you said, helping your children to be independent. You teach them all the life skills, but then they will do something, and that one thing, right, that would kind of make you question, like, oh wow, everything that I've built or helped her build is now wiped out, in one bad decision, for example. So it was a big struggle, internal struggle for me, learning this lesson. But a lot of letting go, a lot of like, thinking like, oh, what could have been, or what should I, all these questions, right? And also looking at my position as a parent, right? Like how far do I go? And to me, she's still below 21. So it was a big tussle, really, really big tussle. So for me, it was also personal development, right? Growing through that and understanding that there are a lot of things that you can do your best, but it is still beyond your control.
Yeah,
So
that's a tough one, especially as a mother, because
yeah,
we're there and a parent to nurture and protect and what we think is our best,
yeah,
in the best
yeah,
interest for, the children. And it's such a hard, position to be in. And
yeah,
yeah, I feel for you on that.
yeah, it was tough. But that lesson also taught me that there are many things now that my daughter's away, she's studying in the UK. Um, I don't feel very overly concerned about. I think that that big lesson helped me to like be much more relaxed about things. That she's away at the beginning, yes, of course, the usual concerns, like she's alone and then she was feeling quite lonely at the beginning. But then after a while, I get a sense that she is getting to the hang of things and I feel like she's safe. She feels that she has a very strong circle of friends, so I'm now very relaxed about it. I don't harp on things like, oh, why haven't you texted me or why haven't you called me? I just give her the space and then I let her call me when she needs to call me. And I feel quite comfortable with that, right now. And I think if I didn't have that experience with the court case and all of that, I think I would be that parent who would like, oh my God, my daughter's away. She's so far away. What if she needs me? I think I would be that parent. But now I'm like, I'm pretty chill about it. And I know that, she's fine. As long as I can see that her photos, she's updating on social media, I know that, okay, she's fine. And, then I don't have that much concern. I just look forward to seeing her again, so I make sure that she comes home twice a year, arrange her air tickets that she can come back twice a year so that I get to see her. Yeah.
It's good that you can come to that conclusion because it's really hard and it's such an individual thing too, because the hardest part, I think, is not to compare your situation with somebody else's.
Yeah.
And, what's the definition of a close family?
Yeah.
Because I'd always envisage, my two children myself as a close family.
Yeah.
And, they are close, but, there's times where there's, quite a bit of, time, particularly with my daughter, where I know she's busy and she's doing lots of things, and I don't expect to be in a pocket all the time. And she doesn't expect that. But there's times when I think, oh no, she's starting to distance herself. Oh no, we're not going to be this close family anymore. And I think you just have to trust because,
Yeah.
like I said, it all comes down to what's your definition of close?
Yeah.
And I know that any, like, if they're in trouble or anything like that, they pick up the phone, we would be there
Mm.
immediately. It's just I'm getting on with their lives.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to know what's ahead sometimes, because I know my father, he had a fallout with his family many, many years ago, and he just didn't talk to them. And I've always been concerned that, if you leave the communication for too long, then, you're so used to not having that person there. So then the absence, gets, more and more, and then the distance gets, further and further away. So therefore the relationship doesn't become as close.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's always been my worry. And I thought
Yeah.
you just have to trust, because at the end of the day, you know yourself better than anyone. You're not going to allow that to happen. But it's a really scary place to be in, because you still want to try and maintain those really close family dynamics,
Yeah.
with your children, but, and you want their independence at the same time. But it's hard, because I know people too that, they'll be with their children all the time, or, that they just naturally will just call one another. And I thought, oh, I want a family like that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But, we do have that, but just in different ways. It
Yeah.
comes down, I think, to perception and expectation.
And I guess also it's cultural, right? Like in the Asian context in Singapore, Singapore is such a small country. So most people would live with their parents until they get married. And so housing is so expensive here as well. But the situation here is, I feel quite extreme, because adult kids are so coddled, extremely coddled. Even they're at the age of 40, if they have not um met anyone, they have not gotten married, they're still living at home with their parents. And I think it has gotten to a point where it's really unhealthy. They are just, like children in adult bodies. Everything is done by mommy and daddy, even though they are in their 40s. In a way, you can't, it's a difficult situation in Singapore. Being small, everything is expensive. Moving on your own, but I feel something can be done where maybe parents should start accepting rent from their children, like, rental money. Don't do the laundry for them, don't cook for them, like, treat them like a tenant, right? I think that will shift the whole psychological aspect of the parent and adult children relationship,
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because with obviously my children are a little bit, grown up now, but they reflect on those stories and they'll say, I remember when mum said, right, you're a certain age now, you can make your own sandwiches for school. But the way the story comes out, I thought, I never said it like that. But they did pay their rent once they started getting their first job, and they paid a certain amount of rent. And I know my son because he would pay the rent, which means the food and things like that. And so he used to pay a fair amount, and like he did eat a lot, but he sorry, he didn't pay a fair amount. He paid like a reasonable price, and but he always used to think I was ripping him off. Because when he would talk to his friends, and they must say, oh God, your mum's ripping you off, and I said, well, did you tell them that includes all your shopping, like your food and everything as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's like half the amount of what he pays now.
Yeah. And I think they don't realize how expensive things are, right? Until they live on their own and realize, oh my God.
I know. And they don't take so much for granted now because they both left home at 19, and they're 24 and 26 now. But, the lessons that they've learned, in those early sort of teens to now, because I would do a shop and I'd come home, I don't know, with 7 oranges or whatever. And next minute, my son will come out of the kitchen with 5 of them cut up. And so I used to say to him, don't just have 5 oranges, make a meal from it. So everything now is like whenever he looks at something to make a meal from it. And so he then I started saying that to his girlfriend. She'd look in the cupboard for something to eat. He goes, no, make a meal from it. Because he also knew that it would fill him a lot, for a lot longer as well. So yeah, these lessons now, and like they're doing their own thing now, but just things that have always stuck. But yeah, listening back, now, like just through the round table conversation and just hearing them talk about certain things, and I know they're really grateful for those learning experiences because it's what taught them today. When they're independent, they can cook. They've been able to do that for such a long time. They can do everything for themselves. They know I left home at 16. I had to learn and do all that. And, they were really grateful for that, for those life lessons to be passed on.
Yeah. Yeah. How far away are they from you?
My son's probably about 40 minutes and my
Okay.
daughter's probably about just over 2 hours. So
Okay.
I don't get to see my daughter as much now that she's moved away there. Just with her work, my work, there's not a lot of time in between and her sports, and she's busy. She's got her own thing. So I try and sort of see her once every few months if I can. But, that it makes it difficult sometimes too because, she'll come up and stay with, her brother up here. But I don't get to see them because their dad might be up, for that weekend, and she doesn't contact me to say, oh, hey, Mum, I'm up, would you like to have a coffee? And, because knowing that I know that she's up, but kind of having that expectation, she might just want to, reach out and say, Mum, I know you're really busy. Have you got time for a coffee? I'd love to see you. Nothing. So, it's really hurtful, but at the same time, I try and understand, but it comes down to that expectation because if I didn't expect, then I wouldn't be disappointed. So, and I wouldn't hold her to do that. I would
Yeah.
just think that she would want to do that naturally because I want
Yeah.
to see her,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that she would think the same. But I always know my mother used to say to me, don't worry, Lenny, one day you'll become a parent yourself and you'll understand.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting my time now.
Yeah. And I think also from the, children from divorced families, right? So there's always this, they are also in a difficult position, right? Like time spent during the holiday season, for example, like how do they break the, decide, right, when to go where? So we have an understanding, like with my daughter, we have an understanding, okay, each Christmas, right? We'll just swap. Like one Christmas she's with me and then one Christmas she's with her dad. And I know that during the times when she's with the dad, I'm just gonna not even contact her and not make it feel like it's weird or
Yeah,
that kind of pressure, right? So
yeah,
maybe your daughter was going through that, right? I mean, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't call mom because I'm with dad. So
yeah.
yeah, it can be
It's
awkward.
I try not to put them in that situation because
Yeah,
it's we don't have the conflict, but I just don't need to talk to him, but I
yeah,
don't make don't make them feel uncomfortable or anything like
yeah,
that. And when it
yeah.
comes to Christmas, when they were younger, we used to try and sort of have some sort of a arrangement, and I was really, I suppose, lucky in a way, like they were my children, and he was the one that changed the situation. So some of his partners weren't really that maternal, and so having younger children run around was a bit of an inconvenience. So I think he's trying to make
Ah,
up for lost time now. But
mm,
still, I was there every step of the way, when they were
yeah,
growing up. And so now he's still a bit of a Disney dad. So he still does, all the fun things and this and that. And
yeah,
look, it's great that the kids get to experience that because they know where things lie with me. And
yeah,
I'm glad that they can get the balance. Sometimes they can be a little bit too focused on that, and they can take a lot for granted in that way. They do forget, but they quickly come around. But also too, what happens when they were growing up, I didn't get caught up in this whole Christmas thing where they were felt like they had to be with a parent, one
mm,
year and then disappointing the other.
yeah,
So what I used to do, we would just pick a date
mm,
and it might be the 19th of December or whatever it is. That was going to be our Christmas day. And
mm,
because they might have been away,
mm,
and I actually started to enjoy it more because I felt like it was more personal, that we
yeah,
weren't sharing it with
yeah,
the rest of the world on the same day, like the
yeah,
traffic road, everything,
yeah,
because it was about coming together, people are forgetting about the message of Christmas.
yeah.
And so the last few years we used to hire a barbecue boat and would be on Noosa River and the dogs would come, we'd all just jump on, we'd make some food and we would just take it out for about 4 hours and we could go swimming, we could do wherever you pull up, you can just
Oh,
anchor
nice.
and then off you go. And it was great because if you did that on Christmas Day, forget it, it'd just be so busy. But
Mm,
sometimes I've done it Christmas Eve, sometimes I've done it Boxing Day, but just whenever. So
yeah,
we've learnt to not get caught up on the day. It's just
yeah,
what our day is. That's where we make
yeah,
it special. So
yeah.
that's really good because I hope that then that they will then, take that on themselves. And
Yeah,
a lot of the time, like last year, I worked on Christmas Day or part of it, and she has too. So we
yeah,
just go with the flow.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which
That
is
makes
good. So
yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it is a tough time. It can be a tough time for parents trying to navigate through all that. And,
Yeah.
particularly when you've got another person there trying to sort of, they're entitled to be involved, but it's just something you have to try and navigate through as well.
But I guess when it comes to this kind of situation, when the kids grow up, it gets a lot easier, right? I mean, you don't have the like who's going to take care of them during the because they are grown-ups. They can they can
You
decide.
do,
So, you don't
yeah.
have to keep an eye on them, right? You don't have to, be careful when you jump into the swimming pool. I mean, you don't need to do any of that.
No, I still come out and say, like my son's very carefree at times, and we might be go, oh, hang on, be careful. But I don't say it as a mother parent,
Yeah.
like they've
Yeah.
got their own, their own independence. But,
Yeah.
they still turn to me for a lot of advice,
Yeah.
which is really good because I'm really close with both of them. And
That's
it's
nice.
just have to sort of let them go and do their own thing, but trust and not have high expectations. Trust the
Yeah.
process and lower the
Yeah.
expectations is what I'm finding.
When adult children are being coddled, they don't make very good life partners.
No.
They expect their life partner to be the parent, which is the dynamics that I'm observing here in
Yeah, you would
Singapore.
see that at the moment, wouldn't you?
Oh my God, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just terrifying watching and like, oh my God, like you not only do you I mean you're marrying your son, you're marrying your mother, that sort of a dynamics. It's far too common and it is not healthy. The psychological dynamics of what is a father and a mother become so mixed up. So thankfully, in my family dynamics, it made me leave home at age of 18 or 19. So, which is at that time, it was extremely rare for
Mm.
someone to live out on their own. Like, people don't do that. But I feel it's far more common now where younger people want to be independent. They move out on their own despite the high rental and they do struggle financially. But I mean, I'm with them on this. The struggle financially is far better than living in an environment where you're not happy or you feel like you are psychologically quite closed in or controlled. And in my own family dynamics, right? It's just, there's only this much you can take. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, I left when I was 18, no, 19 on my own. And it was good. And yeah, it's a different kind of independence. When you have that kind of independence, you see life very differently. You do things very differently. So you become quite different. All decisions you make will be really different from everyone else when you have that sense of independence. It's very psychological, the whole process.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. And also the maturity,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just know with I don't see the same side as what you do because obviously you see all that with your coaching but I just know from a general population type of thing just in the community that people that have been mollycoddled, so to speak, or sheltered, or just haven't had that they have not had the opportunity to be independent because their parents have been doing everything for them. Not only do they grow up selfish, they grow up very self-centered. I'm not saying all of them, but
Yeah.
excuse me, the ones that I have seen, they don't want to work hard for the money. They want to have that executive position,
Yeah.
but then not appreciate the
Yeah.
journey and the hard work
Yeah.
that you need to put in just to get there. And it's a
Yeah.
journey because that's all learning. And it's like
Yeah.
having a house straight away. It was like, well, hang
Yeah.
on, how do you know the struggles of renting and saving and doing all that? Because you've missed out on a lot of learning experiences. And if you
Yeah.
just give the kids everything that they want all the time.
Exactly. I was having this conversation with my niece.
Excuse me.
She's in real estate and she was telling me that the prices of housing has gone up, even public housing, right? It has gone up by like now to buy a public housing flat, it could be a 5-year-old apartment, is 1 point something million, which is ridiculous, right? We're talking about public housing, not private housing.
God.
And these places are bought by the parents for their children. And so the children will have no idea how much effort or how much work it takes to make money,
Yeah.
to to live, to everything is given. And this is such a common story now. So it's almost like people our generation, right? Midlife parents who want their kids to have good things, but they're not doing their kids a favor.
No, the later part of the school years, when the kids have got um, they're driving to school and they're, say, in the last year of the high school, and, parents would just give their kids a car. Mine had a car to use, but they knew it was my car,
Yeah,
and then they also knew that they could have that for 1 year
yeah,
after they got their license. I gave them a year to save before they got a car, okay, my son ended up having a little bit longer. It's a funny story between the two of them. Unfortunately, well, no, my daughter applied to it. My son didn't. He needed it a little bit longer. But, just as a parent, when I was up against, these kids and, my kids would say, oh, but such and such, parent, they gave it to them. And I said, look, you're probably surrounded by a lot of parents, a lot of kids who are just given everything. But at the end of the day, you're not going to learn much. I know you don't appreciate it now, but you will later on, because what seems to be not fair at the moment, you'll be thankful for later on,
Yeah.
because you'll understand what it's like to work for something. And if you've
Yeah.
just got given something all the time, well, then
Yeah.
you're never going to appreciate where you are. It's
Yeah.
nice to have that standing, but you don't get that satisfaction nor
Yeah.
the growth.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for them to see that, because it's not a problem for them at the time. It's just you're taking away the easy solution.
Yeah.
They just want that quick answer. But and I've noticed such a big difference, and I look at my guys and I'm so proud of them, of the
Mm.
decisions and the independence and the hard
Mm.
lessons they had to learn, but they're so thankful for it. And
Yeah.
they're still learning and they're still growing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not an easy place to be. And but I'm thankful I did stick to my guns for it, because I remember I used to say to them, I was always up against them saying, but mum, such and such parents do it, I'm the only one. I mean, we were all, as parents, we've all heard that, right? And I'd
Yeah.
say, yeah, okay, well then, life's not fair, but hey, guess what, this is one parent who does it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I just stuck to my, dug my heels and stuck to my guns, and then, and just hoped that I was making the right decision, which did pay off. But
Sometimes I feel like, when people love their kids, they're actually not loving, they're coddling, and they are really uh killing the future for their children,
yeah,
because there are no
yeah,
life skills. They have not developed life skills. They have not learned how to do things, to be independent, to live alone, to clean their home, to do the simple task. And in Singapore, most households have helpers, live-in helpers.
yeah,
And so that, also handicaps your children, right? Like they don't know how to do the simple thing like cooking, boiling water, cutting up fruit, like a simple thing. They can't do it because, all of this coddling. It is a big social issue, which I think at the moment they're not really seeing the problem yet, but the problems are coming. They're incoming. Yeah. Yeah, we have to trust our own parenting skills, right? Whatever we have imparted when they were much younger, and
yeah.
knowing that they are going to take that with them into adulthood, and that, yeah, they may go through ups and downs, but, their struggles is not a reflection of whether we've done a good job or a bad job. Um, but we have to really equip them with skills, life skills, I think, which is not taught in schools, not taught anywhere, right? And it's
No,
something that has to be taught from our own example of how we live our lives, and, and how we do things. Well, this is a good topic. Parenting adult children. I think it's such a tough one, because how we parent ourselves is how we parent our children. And the inner parenting, the psychological dynamics, right, in what we do, how we parent ourselves is how we parent our children. And if we have not learned how to parent ourselves, then we will parent our children the same way, and then we pass on these things down, to future generations as well. So because your kids are going to learn from you, and then their kids going to learn from them.
it's really hard, because like as a parent, you always want best for your child, and for whatever circumstances are at the time. And you don't know that decision that you're making could end up being a bad choice for them down the track.
Yeah.
You can only do your best. But I see a lot of my clients have got, I've spoken about this before, about they've got grandchildren, and, their son or their daughter, they've had a baby and they've had to go to work. So they expect, the mother, or in this
Yeah.
case, a lot of mine are female, to come in and look after their baby for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
because they have to get back to work. And I went, oh my God, I never had that luxury,
Yeah.
and I just thought, and I've had one client that sort of stood her ground and said, I'm happy to do this. But this is a cutoff,
Yeah.
like you need to make arrangements. I love to come in and see the child. It's not that they didn't love them,
Yeah.
they just didn't want to be taken advantage of either,
Yeah, exactly. There
you
was
know.
someone told me a story about the granny who doesn't want to be that granny that has to look after the grandkids. She wants her freedom. And then what happened is the whole family turned on her. Even her husband turned on her and labeled her a bad grandmother because she didn't want to look after her grandkids. And then, of course, this story got spread around to all the other relatives and friends. So everybody said, "Oh, she's not a good woman. She doesn't want to look after her grandkids." I'm like, and I said, "Wait a minute here. She's entitled to live her life the way she wants. She's not obligated to look after her grandchildren. Like, what the hell? What are all these people thinking, right? Why
Yeah,
do they pressure her into thinking that she's done a wrong thing?
yeah.
It's ridiculous."
I know,
Yeah,
and also too, not knowing the story, like it's there's a big difference of, say, if they're in a position to look after the child once a week, it's different to 4 or 5 days a week. I know with my kids, I would just love my grandchildren and be around them, but would I be a full-time nanny? No.
yeah,
And I think my kids know that.
yeah,
I would be, the grandma that will look after them. I love to do things with them, but
yeah,
don't expect me to fill your shoes
yeah,
because you're at work.
yeah,
My mother was never maternal with us, and I think that was one of my biggest lessons that I had to learn when I became a mother myself, because I just thought instantly she'd want to be around her grandchildren,
yeah,
because I was honestly basing it on myself at the end of the day, because I knew that's what I would love. And every time I used to get disappointed because I said I saw it as a rejection, that she just didn't want to spend time, and she never sent birthday cards. I would have to remind her that their birthdays were coming up, and the whole time when they were little, when we lived in this, they were brought up in a beautiful little beach, small community town, and so we were there for 15 years. I think in that whole time, she came down 3 times. And
wow,
yeah, it was really sad. And then I think it wasn't until when they were a little bit older, I realized it was my expectation,
yeah,
that I had of her. And I thought, she was never maternal with us.
mm,
Why is she going to be maternal with the
right,
grandchildren? And
yeah,
my dad used to say, I can't understand why she's like that. That's not the lady that she used to. I mean, they've been divorced. They were divorced for years. And he said, I can't. This is her grandchildren.
mm,
And I'll pick up the phone and I'll speak some sense to your mother, and because he was always wanting to be around the grandchildren, not look up, but just to enjoy them and,
yeah,
be with
yeah,
them. And it was really hard because every time I came across that, I had that rejected feeling again. And then it
yeah,
wasn't until I realized it was my own expectation
yeah,
of that's what I thought she should
yeah,
be like.
yeah,
That's when I stopped becoming disappointed. I started to accept her for who
yeah,
she was, not what I
yeah,
thought she should be as a
yeah,
grandparent.
yeah, yeah. Because we look around us and we see how other people are like, as grandparents, we see that, oh, my friend's mom is really nice. She's looking after the grandkids. But if your own mother is not doing it, then you feel like, okay, like you feel like you're missing out. But actually, I mean, all of us are different. We all come from different backgrounds, and but we have to remember, right, how we grew up and how they are as parents will be the same as how they would be like as grandparents. So like why would it be any different? And I think if we have that expectations, then, yeah, like you say, it is our expectations that set us up. you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I know when my children were little, and you're talking, like, say, with mothers, like, sorry, their mothers coming to visit, and my friends, like the mothers, would be at a conflict sometimes because their own mothers were trying to enforce their own ideas on them and
Mm.
go, well, it worked for you lot. Or put a little bit of honey on the dummy, or did this, or put a bit
Yeah,
of this, or a bit
yeah,
of that. And I thought, I am so glad I didn't come across any of that. I just had to learn,
yeah,
and I got help because, I had mothercraft help when they were little, and it was great because it was a very neutral situation. And, I wasn't in a position where I felt like I had to, take on my mother's own belief, even though I might not believe it,
Yeah.
just to please her and avoid conflict. And
Yeah.
like there's so many of those stories that I could go on with, but I was really glad that, I had to learn for myself because, it made me into the mother that I am today.
Yeah.
And, and same as like with grandchildren. And
Yeah.
I've always put down my mother might have been the person that she was with her grandmother, but that's also made me even more determined to be the opposite.
We're grateful for all our lessons in life as
Definitely.
parents. Yeah.
Yeah. You learn a lot from others as well.
So, listeners, if you have stories you want to share with us about how, you are parenting your grown-up children, or you are that grown-up child and your parent is still parenting you, tell us your stories, okay? I think we've come to the end of this particular episode. So, we'd like to say goodbye for now. I'm Shamla Tan from Singapore.
And I'm Alina Anderson from Sunshine Coast, Australia.
Yeah, bye everyone. See you all.
See you.